Well, it's been through a series of really poor governance decisions and processes, with a really divided board, because I don't think there's been a strategy for the college that anyone could go public with, and the real strategy for the college that started well before Grenfell, when Wornington College first started. The real strategy for it was to get a hold of the land, and that was the only real strategy for the college. So within that there was a managed decline process, and that takes place in, for example, cutting courses, for example, making obstacles to things like recruitment and retention, and doing those kinds of things, and then also doing things like just requiring teaching hours be taken out of provision, and those kinds of movements are always sort of quantified as a sort of cost-saving exercise, but they usually and historically what they've added up to is a massive loss of income, because what they do is they chip away at the quality, they chip away at the sort of public face, the reputation, and they just gradually hobble the college. And so at a certain point they're trying, it looks like at a certain point that the books would add up to close the college.
The Further Education Commissioners, Richard Atkins and his team, promised us a fair competition between merger with Morley and the college standalone proposal, and all the way through we thought it was a fair competition, and we now discover that there are in many ways that it wasn't a fair competition, and we believe that it was just a tick box consultation exercise so that government could say, we have allowed these people to put forward a proposal, but in fact it was never going to win, even though he said they were both strong proposals.
The standalone was very thoroughly researched and it was very imaginative, but it wanted to step outside of the traditional further education box, and the SPA process was controlled and managed by the Further Education Commission, who I think had an interest in seeing through government FE policy, which is mergers into larger and larger agglomerates, fewer and fewer colleges, huge institutions covering whole cities. And the idea of a small college with a very imaginative proposal was just more than they could comprehend, to be quite honest. I think they took fright.
Certainly the current FE Commissioner is really supportive of colleges merging and sort of scaling up so that they can maybe scale down admin or whatever, but what you get then is a one-size-fits-all, and the one size is usually the one that fitted the first institution, and then you add on further sort of satellites to that institution. So really the idea of this becoming a satellite adult education institution is so sad, because we've got such a massive need in this community for like really solid, high quality further education provision which can prepare us, our young people for the future, that can add an alternative, because schools are under a lot of pressure. Everyone knows the pressures that schools are in to meet certain sort of league tables and to achieve certain things, but what that makes is a really hostile environment to teach a non-academic student.
I've worked in every sector of education. I've worked in universities, in schools. I've been a supply teacher, a variable hours lecturer. I've been in FE for nearly 30 years. And I think we are, very much the poor relation, and we've suffered from enormous cuts in funding and essentially neglect So the standalone proposal has the potential to look at a new and innovative model that might be something that could be rolled out across the country if it's successful. It's got to be given a chance, I think.
The community had been demanding certain things. I think there was a sense or an expectation that, we'd look at the numbers and it wasn't viable. But actually, what we found is loads of potential, and the curriculum plan that we came up with was, the additions to the curriculum that we've got now with, actual demands. People saying, heads of local secondary schools saying, we'll bite your hand off for that provision. People really needing the provision. So that we had all of those things in place, but at the core of it was what KCC can do now, which is really quite excellent. And I think that has been overlooked because we've been in a process of managed decline, and because there has been, during that process, there's been a desire and a sort of movement towards undervaluing what they're already doing. But when you look at and also the constant discourse around everything, that there's no money, that it can't be done, that you can't. But actually, when you look at the numbers and you look at your skill sets and you look at your staff and all of those things, what you find is it's really viable. So we were stunned to find a curriculum that could walk on its own, could stand up on its own. The backbone of the curriculum plan that we put in, that was costed and was contributing, was only what we could already do. And then there was a whole suite of things that you could also do if you reopen this department or establish that department. But none of those things were necessary to make the college stand. The college can stand on the staff body that it's got now, on the curriculum expertise that it can already do, if it's given the right, if it's given the right kind of support. And there's been no desire to give it that kind of support from a series of management teams. And the current one were brought in to see a merger through. So, what is their interest in seeing the college flourish in its individual way?
Well, I thought the standalone proposal presented us with a future that was very different. We've been through 3 other mergers or potential mergers: Ealing, West London and Hammersmith, City Lit, College of North West London were sort of suggested partners for a while. I think the standalone option actually is a chance for something new and innovative, and that actually puts the college in a stronger position.
It was strong and it was bold because it involved essentially a redevelopment which would have generated income and provided a thriving and strong college on this site.
What I think was the opportunity here that's unusual is that development process was going to be governed by a specially put together board with community representation on it. It was going to be absolutely cast iron. And if there was any other option that came because, things changed at the college or whatever, they would be there in place to make sure all of those, like every financial assumption is tested properly, every possibility for what the college could be would be active and be demanded and whatever. So I think the development is unusual because it wouldn't be a load of people who are, they're consultants from outside the area who come and go, well, this worked brilliantly in Margate or whatever it is they do. I don't know what it is they do, but it would be the oversight process that we'd put in to the standalone bid was unique, and I really hope that we continue to push and make sure that if nothing the standalone survives, the idea that the community should have an oversight board that looks after this building needs to survive. Like a redevelopment would have brought that sort of sense of investment. I don't know how much leisure and pleasure earners are happy to come into a rundown building. I don't know if that would necessarily have been a good thing, but the oversight board is the key, and the community remaining part of and having like legally constituted oversight of any process of development on this building is absolutely key, and it was central to Standa Alone.
We don't feel that Morley is a suitable merge partner because essentially they are for adult education, which is fine. They can do that where they are in Waterloo. We've got no issue with that. But Kensington Chelsea College is a further education college, and we need to defend further education, which is education for everybody from the age of 14 to 16 upwards, including adults. And that's what we're fighting for today.
I'm a student, and I'm one half of the student governors of this site. So I've been a student at this college for about 6 years. I'm a workshop jeweller, so I'm on a non-examined course. But that's not what I'm concerned about. What I'm concerned about is the lack of provision for young people and accredited courses. Because although Morley has a good reputation in adult learning, and particularly short courses, it has no experience of or interest in 16 to 18 basic further education provision. So I'm just bitterly disappointed. The Morley bid was half-formed, didn't answer, it raised more questions than it answered, and as a governor I was left with the feeling that it was a done deal. And I don't mind losing in a fair fight, but that didn't feel like a fair fight.
I feel uncomfortable with the decision about the merger because I feel that Morley has a very different culture, if you like, to KCC. I mean, they're a well-established college. I've actually been there and done classes myself, and my son went there and did access and so on. But I've sort of remained unconvinced about the details in the merger with Morley, and I think the sort of assurances that we've been given have not really answered all the questions, if you like, that the staff and the local community have.
Well, I think if Morley put the effort in, some improvement might be possible, but the way the contracts of Morley staff and their employment practices are not those that we have here, nor are they ones that we particularly would want to adopt. And essentially they've got an awful lot of people on very uncertain short-term hourly contracts. They're not offering security for their staff, and it's, quite frankly, I think that's a very large hurdle to overcome. As to the community, if Morley had got off their backsides and talked to the community in the first place, we might not be in this position. They only started to do so when they realised the Standa Alone had done so, and when they realised how good the Standa Alone bid was. The two independent governors who voted against Morley have resigned. For the three of us who are the three of us are staff and student governors, we're elected, so the position is slightly different. I did think about it, and I thought, no, I'm not going to walk away just yet, but I won't stand next year. I mean, I've done 2 years, which is long for a student governor anyway, but it's left a bad taste. And we have this wretched executive that clearly can't add up, who are now brought in to see through a merger, have raised our deficit from 4.5 million to over 6. It's quite extraordinary, the profligacy of their spending. And these are the people who are telling us that the Standa Alone bid wasn't financially sound.
These kinds of things have been going on 4 years at the college, through various iterations of boards, through various iterations of management teams. So what I would say about the current board and management team is that there are, a mismatch of people who came here and here and here and here, and I don't think there's anyone who's got actual longevity to or an understanding of the actual history of this college when it was a thriving community college, and when it changed the lives of people all over the area. So anytime you come and talk about Kensington, especially this site, people will stop you and say, oh, you know, I did this course there, it changed my life, my children have been there, it's been really important. So it's been really important to that community. But now we have a management team that have sort of been bit part replaced here and there and here and there. And so I don't even think they know what they're supposed to be doing, apart from ensuring that the college is merged now and handed off, and the question, the really dodgy question about the land and what should happen to it, and is just been given to another set of people who actually are a board of a college in the south of London, who, you know, with the best will in the world, like, how are they going to get on top of all of this and understanding of all of this and come into to understand what our community needs or what's really been happening here? And probably, if I was them, I'd have my own agenda.
Well, the real impact will be for 16-year-olds, not those that are on courses at the moment, those will finish, but for future students, 14, 15-year-olds in school now who won't have the option to come to a local college, and particularly kids who've not been served well in the school system. And with sixth forms increasingly selective, these are kids who will be left without opportunities, and that's what exercises the present students, the young ones especially, not only themselves but the future of young people in this area. So it's a sad day.